Hey, what's up you guys? It is me, Emric, and welcome back to Movies and a Mug Show. I sit down every single week and talk about a movie whilst putting in a mug, get it? So this week, my consciousness has just been flooded with ads for a new movie called Bros, and I guess it's because the internet knows
you ugly.
And Bros are really big on touting themselves as the first big studio gay rom-com. I actually don't think I've gone a single day in this past week without seeing an ad for this movie. And so I thought, hey, you know, if they're gonna spend that much on marketing, then fine, I'll come and see your gay movie. And if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know I like a rom-com. It's kind of a dream of mine to be in a rom-com. Just an FYI, this movie is still in cinemas and I'm gonna be spoiling absolutely everything.
So what's happening? Didn't you guys have an announcement?
This is a little unexpected, but we are in a throuple situation.
You're in a throuple? Let me tell you what's progressive now. Being alone. I love my life, I love my freedom, I love my independence.
That's kind of sad.
That I don't want to be in a throuple? I don't even want to be in a couple.
The Bros is a gay rom-com, and it stars the dude who co-wrote the movie, Billy Eichner, who, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that exactly correctly, but he's the guy who yells at people on the street.
Sweetheart, okay, it has Oscar buzz, and I saw Emma Stone do a Q&A, all right?
I don't know who you're trying to sass for a camera, but you got the right bitch to put you in a wrong motherfucking place.
And it was produced by APATOW Productions, which is the production company that's owned by Judd Apatow, who's the dude who did Knocked Up and oh, that other film. The one with the guys, like the three guys and McLovin. For some reason, all I can think of is Super Bass, but it's not Super Bad. Super Bad. He did Super Bad. So, you know, he's produced some alright things. I think he may have directed some of those. I don't know if he produced all of them. But, you know, he's been attached to some successful projects. I guess we're all supposed to expect great things. And having watched it, okay, I think one of the key things that I was trying to assess whilst watching this film is if this movie wasn't gay, would I still enjoy it? Because let's face it, it's great that you have a romantic couple that consists of two dudes as the core of this story, but is it still a good story? Does it tackle its subject matter in a way that I can get invested in? And is it a movie that I want to rewatch? Similarly, I would have been okay if it was so bad it's good, because I love So Bad It's Good. 98% of the videos that I make are about movies that are so bad it's good. When I think of the great rom-coms, you know, like the Titan romantic comedies, I'm thinking Love Actually, I'm thinking Bridget Jones, 13 Going on 30, Sleepless in Seattle. Does this movie stack up to them? And unfortunately, my answer is kind of no. If you take away the fact that the leads are two dudes, this movie doesn't really have that much for me to grasp onto. It started some really interesting conversation pieces, but the problem is it didn't develop any of them. And to be frank, I think that this movie suffered from having a pretty unlikable main character and casting a principal actor who was not equipped to carry the role. The supporting cast for this movie were really good. They really managed to put in some really recognizable faces, and they really did get some laughs out of me. I'm not gonna lie, I legitimately found several things very funny in this movie. Whilst I was watching the movie, I kind of honed in on one thing that is probably gonna stop me from revisiting this film, and that is Sex and the City. Bear with me on this. We've all seen Sex and the City, okay? We all know what it is. Sex and the City is about four very different women, but there is a primary character and her name is Carrie. And Carrie is the fucking worst. I don't like anyone who identifies as a Carrie. You're annoying, you're whiny, you're bitchy, you're judgy, you're rich for no fucking reason, you can get fucked. But the reason that Sex and the City really worked is that the characters around her you know, kind of grounded this series. They made it more watchable, and they also kind of made Carrie more likable. That is essentially what happened in this movie. The main character is such a little bitch that scenes where it's just him drag on and you're like, oh my fucking god, this dude is a nightmare. And the supporting cast, every time they're on screen, lift up the movie, but then as soon as they're gone and you're stuck with this whiny bitchy man baby, everything just goes to shit again and you don't want to watch the movie. And that's real unfortunate, because out of everybody, literally out of every single person on the motherfucking planet Earth, I'm probably the target audience for this film. But if that concept is a little bit esoteric, let's go through the movie and I'll point out the Carrie-isms as we go. And also, let me put on a top, because, I mean, the movie's called Bros, and, you know. What's up, bro? Okay, so the movie opens with our main character named Bobby, and he has a podcast, right? But then in voiceover, we basically get him saying, you know, why he's the wrong person to be writing a rom-com. Bobby is played by the dude who co-wrote the movie. And I kind of got a sense that this was that dude's way of basically saying, I'm probably not the best person to do this, but if I wasn't attached to the project and wasn't going to star in it, it probably wouldn't have been made.
And I said, well, there's your first mistake, because not all gay people are nice. And I got up and left. Anyway, it's totally fine. I'm not the right person to write a rom-com anyway.
Kind of reminded me of that tweet that guy put out, you know, the one who played Evan Hansen, where he was like, I know my dad made this movie, but if I wasn't gonna be in it, it probably wouldn't have been made. I don't know, maybe I'm getting the wrong end of the stick there, but it doesn't really seem like a great way to inspire trust in your audience. But turns out he was right. In my opinion, he was not the right person to cast in this role. But okay, we'll get back to that. But then like a minute later, we cut to some kind of award show and Kristen Chenoweth pops out and she's wearing like a big rainbow drag queen reveal coat. And she's got some kind of animatronic headpiece on that apparently depicts the Stonewall riots. And it starts like moving around, and honestly, I cackled.
Good evening. What an honor for me to be here tonight. On my head is a hat depicting the Stonewall riots, where the queer liberation movement began.
For the minute that she was in this movie, she really made me smile. I was like, oh, okay, you know what? This is a strong way to start this off, you know? Going gay, and we can only get gayer. Kristen Chenoweth presents an award to this Bobby guy, and he goes up and accepts it, and basically says thank you. He's crowned like the best cis white gay guy of the year? Question mark? I don't know if that's a real award, but okay. Does talk about how he has recently accepted a job as like a curator at a museum in New York. And this museum is going to be like the first national LGBTQIA whatever history museum. It's a gay museum. It's a museum of gays. So now that the background is established and we kind of have our setting for the movie, because a lot of it is gonna kind of revolve around this museum, we cut to what I consider to be a pretty accurate depiction of gay hookup culture, because you've got two gay dudes on Grindr, and even though one of them is very clearly a bottom, he for some reason feels the need to pretend that he's verse, even though his legs are going to be behind his ears faster than the UK can change to another prime minister. That joke probably won't age well, but I don't know, Google Liz Truss if you're watching this from the future.
A sign of just how tenuous her standing was, and perhaps how brutal UK politics can be, a British newspaper began tracking a head of lettuce to see if the embattled Truss would last longer than the produce, and it did.
And then they meet, and they have what I would consider to be a pretty substantive conversation, which is, hey, sup? The other one says, hey, sup? And then they get to fucking. We both know why we're here. We don't need to watch 3/4 of Jurassic Park. There's then a rather confusing confusing sex scene. The two of them are making out. It looks like they just start jerking off next to each other, and then one of them just nuts all over the other one in about 30 seconds flat, and then they call it a day. Why do you even need the other person to be there at that point? You could have just jerked off at home. Have I been doing it wrong this entire time? But anyway, after that, Bobby is back on his podcast and he's like waxing lyrical about his fucking post-nut clarity, even though I guess technically he didn't nut, so about his post-sexual encounter clarity. And this is the first example of Bobby being an absolute Carrie. Because if you remember, in Sex and the City, Carrie had like an advice column where she'd do the exact same thing. And I think in the new one, the And Just Like That I only watched one episode of because I thought it was kind of bad, she does have a podcast where she does literally the exact same thing. But, you know, he kind of talks about his sex life in a way that Carrie did, where there's like a bit of dissonance between the fact that he says he really enjoys casual sex and living this lifestyle, but like it's very clear that he just hates it entirely and is kind of too afraid to change it. But anyway, we cut to another scene and Bobby is then at a party with a dude named Henry. And Henry is another one of those side characters who is legitimately funny and says some shit that I find really quite amusing. And he says that the party is for a new app. And the app is named Zellweger, as in, you know, Renee Zellweger. It's an app for dudes who don't really want to hook up. They just want to talk about Hollywood starlets and then cuddle in bed. Meanwhile, it pans to the party and it's literally just a bunch of topless buff dudes grinding on each other. And I'm like, yeah, this is the gays. This is the gays. These are my people. At this party, Bobby is approached by a dude named Aaron, who is described by Henry as being very, very pretty, but very, very boring. And Aaron is like, you know, kind of what you think of when you think of a gay bro. Buff, sexy, great abs, white. He's basically a walking Ken doll. The way they introduce him is kind of funny because he's having a conversation with Bobby and Aaron like points to a dude in like, you know, the throngs of men who are just dancing in the club and he's like, hey, see that dude over there? I'm supposed to go and fuck him and his husband later. And that's it. That's the end of the conversation. That's all he has to say about the matter and then just moves on with his life. You go, slut. You better live that dream. Anyway, later on, the two of them have a conversation where they say that gay guys are either super, super smart or dumb as fuck. But somehow we've managed to brand ourselves so that all straight people think that all gay people are like smart, intellectual, and clever. And I'm like, really? Like, as far as I'm aware, straight people don't really think that gay people are carte blanche, the keepers of any wisdom. I just think they think we're kind of slutty and vapid. And at least in my case, they are 100% correct. But Aaron and Bobby start having some weird kind of competition, question mark, about which one of them is more emotionally unavailable.
Oh, are you emotionally unavailable? No one's more emotionally unavailable than me. No one. I pride myself on that.
If you're sitting there thinking, that's a bit on the nose to just tell the audience outright, then, you know, you'd be correct. Anyway, so later on, the two of them decide to go on a date, and they kind of bicker a lot on the date. I guess that's supposed to be their form of flirting, but keep in mind, Bobby's job is something to do with, you know, queer culture. He's prominent enough to be the head curator of a queer museum. And considering that that's his job, he spends an awful lot of time just bitching about gay people.
Gay guys are usually like the absolute smartest or like the dumbest people I've ever met. What are you into? One of these boring, ripped idiots with no opinions? A lot of these guys are dumb as shit.
But when the two of them are on the date, they bump into a dude that Aaron went to high school with, and I was immediately like, oh, okay. So this is gonna be some kind of romantic love rival because he's really hot, and why the fuck else would they introduce him, even though he's currently presenting as straight. I only had to wait like 11 minutes for that to come true. So, you know, that was nice. But anyway, after the date, They're having a conversation and Bobby's like, I don't do relationships. And Aaron's like, I don't do relationships. And then Bobby's like, you need to not fall for me. And then Aaron's like, you need to not fall for me. And I was sat there like, isn't this a conversation that Tina Belcher had with Daryl in that one episode of Bob's Burgers?
I wish you were in all my classes. And when we kiss, we hit our glasses.
But then they're like, stood outside of Bobby's apartment. And I was like, okay, so since you've established that, we're not doing a relationship, like, I'm about to go have a three-way with these dudes. You're welcome to come, if you want. And then Bobby just has a full-on rant about how emotionally inconsiderate that is. And it's like, dude, the two of you are not having a relationship. And he already made it clear before you even went on this date that he's sexually active with other people. And he's inviting you to the party. Oh, all you jocks are all the same. You just want to fuck anything with a hole. Like, blah, 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 blah. Bro, chill the fuck out. What's your problem? From the jump, this dude is whining and bitching and moaning and just like really judgy of how this other dude lives his life. And honestly, that is such a Carrie move. I think that the movie thinks it's doing some kind of smart meta commentary on the state of homosexuality, but really it's just a little bit judgy about how circuit gays live their lives. And this will be like a running theme throughout the movie. Like, even though Bobby kind of claims that he's sex positive and, so liberal, yada, 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 he really just isn't. Cut forward and Bobby invites Aaron to like a fundraiser for his museum thingy. And he gives him a tour. And then Aaron's like, bro, your museum's kind of boring because it's all about AIDS and the Holocaust. Like, where's the fun shit? And honestly, I agree. Those things are definitely important to remember. But I also think that it's important to celebrate the current achievements of queer people and to show that we're, a pretty celebratory subculture. A lot of gay shit is real fun. So put some of that in your museum. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but just a little bit. But anyway, Aaron leaves Bobby at the event and then suddenly Deborah Messing is there. And Bobby's all like freaking out about Aaron. And then Deborah Messing is like, shut the fuck up and get your shit together. And I was like, thank you, Deborah Messing. I mean, personally, I'm team Megan Mullally, but she has a point.
Did I waltz in here and lay all my shit on you? Answer me. Answer me. Shut up.
But anyway, the two of them do decide to go out on another date and they're like in a park and Aaron is quite active, right? Remember I said he has a six-pack, so he's like all sporty and shit. They see a bunch of dudes who are like playing some kind of sport. I forget which sport it was. I'm gonna say frisbee, but I don't know, it could have been volleyball, like some kind of pickup game in a park. But Aaron's looking over and in my mind, I was like, oh, like, he's a super sporty dude, so he wants to go and, play with them, like he wants to join in. But Bobby's immediate thought is, oh, I'm not bro enough like those people. He likes big manly men and I'm not a big manly dude, bro. And as I've already mentioned, this is literally an insecurity that he has throughout the entire fucking movie. He is very, very insecure about the fact that he is less like traditionally masculine than the dude he's dating, and it's exhausting. And then because Bobby is like, oh, you like them bros? You want to be one of those bros? I can be one of those bros. They start wrestling.
I gotta be aggressive. Oh, there you are.
So then we cut to the bedroom and they're having this like masculine experience. I honestly don't know how I'm going to explain this to potentially the two straight people watching this. Is a thing that happens a lot in gay porn where it's like two dudes and they're like grabbing each other and they're like, they do this a lot. Yeah. "Ugh," and then they like sniff each other's armpits for some reason. I don't know why, but they do.
Is it that? Yeah, that's what you like. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. You like that, bro? And I was looking at Bobby like, you spent the last 25 minutes of this movie shitting on gay dudes who are, you know, bros, and then you do this? This character is either just super, super insecure or just completely lacks internal consistency. And I think it's probably just both. But anywho's, it turns out that they actually kind of like spending time together. So they decide to go to Provincetown, which is like someplace in America. Whilst they're on this trip, we have the scene in the movie that I have probably the biggest problem with, because this is the scene that is supposed to, I guess, make us understand why Bobby is such a whiny bitch. This is supposed to be the emotional moment, like the moment where we're like, okay, I can root for this dude and I can understand why, you know, he is the way he is because of the hardships that he's faced. And Bobby explains that, you know, throughout his life, he's always just been told that he was too much, too flamboyant, that he's too gay, that he cares too much. That really had an impact on his self-esteem and on his ability to really picture himself moving through the world. I, of all people, can really relate to the messaging here. And I really think that that is something that could have been a really kind of powerful emotional moment for the character. However, I don't feel personally that the actor was up to delivering this message. I showed you a clip earlier in this movie of the character that Mr. Eichner tends to do, this kind of loud, kind of fast talking, flamboyant, flippant gay dude. And he pretty much approached this movie with that same character. And that really does not translate well to an emotional moment, because when he's trying to be emotional and when he's trying to access those deeper feelings, those moments that are supposed to be softer and more intimate and quieter, his tone is still bitter. Like he's coming across bitchy and pissed off. And in the moment that is supposed to make up for all of the bitchy and catty behavior that this dude partakes in throughout the entire movie, it doesn't allow you to root for him. And that's unfortunate, because I do think that that is a conversation that could be really, really impactful. And that is an important conversation to have. But anyway, they carry on dating, and then Aaron introduces Bobby to his parents. And he's like, look, these people are, you know, they're a little bit slower paced than you. You know, they come from a smaller town. So can you just try to just give it a little bit of a rest, because you're always on a 10? And like, can you just try for like a couple of days or like, you know, a couple of hours to just be on like a 6? I can kind of see both sides of this argument, because immediately Bobby's like, what, you don't want me to be myself? I can understand that Aaron is a little bit apprehensive about introducing anyone to his parents, because he's never done that with a guy he's dating before, and he really wants them to like this dude. And if this dude is, you know, coming in full barrels the first time he meets them and they're not used to that, then, you know, it could be a little bit jarring for them. Like it or not, we live in a society where not everyone is really that familiar or spends that much time with gay people. On the flip side, for someone like Bobby, who has been shown to be so insecure, I can see how even the suggestion that he, you know, tone it down a little bit is like fucking life altering. It's like, oh my God, you don't love me. You don't like me for me. I'm not who you want to be with because I'm not masculine enough. This whole thing all over again. And it's like, but there is a middle ground. When I'm in the club, I act one way. When I'm at work, I act a completely different way. And when I'm around my parents, I act slightly different. But I guess the messaging that the movie wants to have is that you should be your authentic self 100% of the time, no matter what. This could just be because I don't really like the character, so I wish he would be a little bit less. And that's not internalized homophobia. That's me disliking a specific character type. I dislike Carries, okay? Said it about 11 times so far. But Bobby has to, you know, be himself and completely like emotionally overshare or whatever the fuck about something that he's passionate about and just completely goes off and completely disregards what his partner had asked of him. Somehow we're supposed to think that Aaron is the bad guy for like being pissed about that. They get into a fight and then Aaron storms off, and then like 5 minutes later he's like making out with that dude from his hometown, and I was like, oh okay, yeah, so he is gonna do that. Okay, cool, good to know that I was right about that. But then Bobby catches them and just loses his ever-loving fucking mind.
Just say it. Can you please just say it? Finally, just fucking say it, because I already know. You're not attracted to me.
He's like, all this happened because I wasn't fucking good enough, so now I'ma be a bro. So he starts taking steroids, and then after taking steroids once, in the middle of a meeting at the museum, just kind of like starts yelling and like smashing stuff. And he has to get held down by T.S. Madison, who's just like, will you shut the fuck up? Will you grow up, you whiny little bitch boy? Every time T.S. Madison shows up in this movie, I'm like, she's actually a pretty good actress. Not only is she legitimately funny, but she is a pretty bitch. Her face is so pretty that I was just kind of ignoring whatever the fuck that whiny dude was doing, and I was just sat there like, your makeup artist did a real good job.
Maybe the final wing should be a big empty room where people can go to just shut the fuck up.
Anyway, so Aaron apologizes to Bobby for kissing this dude, but Bobby is like, no, I just don't trust you anymore. And that's because, you know, the two of them had agreed to be monogamous, so I completely agree that what Aaron did was bullshit and was a betrayal of your trust. I can understand, you know, if you just don't trust him and don't want to carry on with the relationship, then fine. All right, so Bobby loses his mind, does some property damage, blah, blah, blah. Then he goes and he apologizes to everyone for being such a whiny bitch, and they're like, it's okay, you're the main character of this movie, so it's fine, bro, don't worry about it. And then we're at the opening of the museum, which is, you know, like, essentially like the ball in the rom-com, you know, it's like the time where there's gonna be a grand romantic gesture, everything's gonna wrap up nicely, and there'll be a kiss at the end. So the opening is going ahead, and Bobby is giving some kind of speech, but he misses Aaron, so he texts him, and then we get the classic, you know, Aaron running through the streets to go find him. That's cute. I appreciate that in any rom-com. I do have one complaint, which is that it wasn't raining whilst he was running. Like, if it was raining and maybe he was wearing a white shirt and then it, you know, stuck to his rippling abs and his pillowing man bosoms, you can see a little bit of knit, like that maybe would have been cuter. Bobby gives some kind of speech, and then Aaron runs in and they see each other, and then Bobby decides to sing a song, which, I mean, wasn't very good. And then he's like, and now I want to sing a song, which is inspired by Aaron's favorite singer, who's some dude called Garth Brooks. I don't know who that is. It's not very good. And don't get me wrong, the dude has a nice voice. I definitely heard worse. What I'm trying to say is the song isn't very good. It's very on the nose. It is very like, here's all the things that happened in this movie. And then, you know, you get the Hallmark movie montage. And then they kiss. And then somehow they got Ben Stiller and Amy Schumer to do cameos. And they're like, you know, in the museum. And I was like, wait. This is an LGBT history museum. What do Ben Schumer and Amy Stiller know? What do Amy Schumer and Ben Stiller have to do with gay history? Like, in this universe, is this Amy Schumer and Ben Stiller? Or are these characters that are queer in the universe? Or is it trying to tell me that Ben Stiller and Amy Schumer are queer? I don't know. But that is the end of the movie. So I am gonna go. I'm just gonna finish up my highlight a little bit, and then we will have some final thoughts. Stunning. Okay, so what I think of this movie. I think it's probably pretty clear from the review itself that I have some mixed feelings on this one. I obviously appreciate the fact that it is queer subject matter featuring queer actors. I think that that is fantastic. I think that the movie actually visually looked really nice. It showed a lot of stuff that I would consider to be pretty representative of modern queer culture. It had a very inclusive cast. The supporting cast itself were fantastic. I really liked pretty much every single supporting actor. Even the main love interest, I think, did a really good job. In parts, the script was legitimately funny, cheesy, just like a rom-com should be. And I do think it touched on some really interesting subject matter. This movie took time to show that oftentimes in at least the US, and, you know, in a lot of Western countries, being queer can be celebrated and is often celebratory because we have a lot of fun shit going on. It made sure to take time to point that out and wasn't just, you know, a sad story where we all die at the end, and that's fantastic. However, I found the main character so deeply unlikable. The fact that this character had such a massive insecurity about the fact that he wasn't masculine enough, despite supposedly being an evolved intellectual, talks about being a cis white gay guy and can unpack the different privileges that gives him, but also can't unpack his own internalized homophobia. It's just a little bit internally inconsistent, and he is such a fucking Carrie. It didn't ruin the movie for me, but I do think that it's probably the thing that is gonna stop me from coming back to it. It is essentially a Hallmark movie. Like, if I saw this and it was labeled as a Netflix original or a VH1 movie, I would not blink twice. Okay guys, that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and I hope you liked this look. If you did, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, kisses from England. Bye guys!